What is up, guys? Casey here with the Coyote Works channel. Well, I'm super excited on this trip. I'm heading down through some country that I've never been through before. Right now I'm taking a cutoff. I'm actually cutting off between Highway 20 and Highway 395, so I'm on this about 20-mile stretch of what should be pretty well-maintained gravel road through here, and it's going to cut off, I don't know, 20-25 miles or so off my trip. And it's going to get me down into some country that I've never actually been in before. So this trip is actually more of a scouting trip than anything. I'm trying to get down into some country that I want to explore in more detail, but it's a big chunk of country kind of going east from Highway 395. We're gonna go just probably see a lot of miles, see a lot of country, hopefully find a good place to camp tonight. Looks like the weather could be a little sketchy, may get some rain, I don't know, may run into some mud, who knows, but no matter what, it's gonna be an adventure. I do have a couple of places mapped out that I want to see if I can locate. One is a site of some old mining operations. We'll try to find those old mines, and I've got a couple of old historic homesteads that I want to try to find too. So hopefully we'll get to see some old history, do a little bit of camp cooking, and just have the usual good time out here getting away from civilization for a couple of days. This is just working out perfect. Rarely ever does a shortcut work out like this for me, but this road is amazing and it looks like it's going to be good all the way through. But this is cool country out here, a lot of lake beds, and it's just wide open. I can't hardly see a tree for as far as I can see. There's definitely still some water out here in places, some mud holes that I've got to navigate around in the road, but for the most part, I think everything's going to be passable. We'll see how it goes when I get up in the hills out here, but I think we're past the worst part of the muddy spring conditions out here. All right, well, I've come down out of the area where there's any trees at, and I'm probably within a mile or two of that mine site. So it looks like at this point my plan is I'm going to try to go hit this mine site and explore it, and then I'll probably have to turn around and backtrack a couple of miles to get back up into an area with some trees where I'll want to camp tonight. But this is just some amazing country out here. It's wide open. Right now I'm driving through this little stretch of it that had a fire burn through it, looks like a few years ago. So it is barren and the wind's blowing across here. But nevertheless, it's some pretty cool country in here. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear me over this wind, but I think this is some kind of a retort piece of equipment. I'm going to have to walk around here a little bit more to see if I can figure out how it all worked together. We got this old tanker up here. This must have supplied water because I see some pipe going down here. The mining operation was down there at the base, so I'm guessing they hauled water up here, and this is a high enough elevation that it gave them good water pressure down there at the retort where they were refining whatever kind of ore they were digging out of here. And I don't even know what they were mining for here, but this is out in the middle of God's nowhere. All right, well, I've got about an hour and a half till dark, and I'm in a terrible place for camping. So I'm gonna look at my map and see what the closest place I might be able to get into some trees, maybe up on the other side of that butte or something. But then the second issue I have is I've hit my midpoint on fuel, and I've got an extra almost 5 gallons with me, but that doesn't give me a lot of range, so I need to figure out a plan and figure it out pretty quick. Looks like I'm heading into some trees again, so hopefully somewhere in here I'll be able to find a spot to camp, because it's about 6 o'clock, 6:15 or something like that. And God, this is neat country. Up ahead of me I can see some really tall peaks up there, and they've still got snow on them. But I think this whole piece of country in here is going to be really neat to explore. I'm really looking forward to getting back out here when I have a little bit more time. But for right now, man, I just want to find a camping spot. And I just saw something interesting up there. What the heck is that? Huh. Couple of wooden posts up there. So I decided to take a quick little side trip and investigate a little bit further. And as often happens out there, I actually stumbled across an interesting little gem of a find. Oh, this is pretty neat. Somebody's got a camp set up here, and there's a sign up here that says to keep it clean, so there must be a couple other desert rats that like coming this far out in the middle of nowhere. So they've got a nice reflective wall built up, a nice little pile of firewood here. There's even a little supply cabinet there with some paper towels and things like that. Of course, I won't use any of the supplies. Well, it looks like there's some magazines in there. We'll have to check those out. Check this out. It's a little Dixie cup dispenser mounted to the tree right there. The sign just says 1971 to 2018, so somebody was up here in 2018. We'll see what's in this cabinet. Of course, we won't mess with anything. We'll leave everything here. These guys have done a good job of keeping their camp nice and policed up. So, got a bunch of coffee cups, some paper towels, some paper plates, a little bucket of seashells, some decor, stack of magazines here. Let's see what kind of a deer camp. This one even says deer camp. American Hunter. Oh, Playboy magazine. Whoops. So 2 American Hunters and 3 Playboys. Apparently the perfect combination of your reading pleasure for deer camp. Tape measure, hammer, yeah, just a good little supply cabinet of camp supplies. So we'll button this thing back up. I'm going to wrap it all back up nice and tight so the birds and the rodents can't get in, because these guys got a nice camp here. There's some tables there. Oh, there's even some golf clubs on the back of that tree. Yeah, it's a pretty cool spot in here, but I would just as soon camp where nobody's camped before, so I'm going to button up and head on down the road. There were some other good looking places down there. Yeah, it's pretty amazing all the random stuff you stumble across way out in the middle of the desert. You'd never expect to find something like this. Alright, I got a spot to camp. It's not ideal, but I do have a couple of potential trees I can get back up underneath. So the first thing I'm going to do is build my fire pit and get my fire going, just so I can have some coals going. So fire, wood, coals going, and then I'll set up the rest of my camp. Since there's no rocks around here, I'm just going to do a cowboy fire pit. And what I call a cowboy fire pit is I'm just going to dig a little bit of soil out here, pile it up around the back to make a little bit of a windbreak for the fire, and then I'll just have it gently sloping back out towards me. So I'm just going to start digging the dirt back. Alright, so that'll give me just enough of a fire pit where I'll be able to keep the fire going, keep the wind off of it a little bit, build up a little bit of coals to do some cooking. The good news is it's not too cold tonight, so I'm not going to need the fire for a lot of warmth. Now what I might do, if I find a couple of appropriate sized pieces of wood, is I might just build this up a little higher with some wood back here, because it is pretty windy up here. I'm kind of getting up near the crest of this little rise, and there's a pretty good wind blowing across it. Alright, let's get a fire going here. Just grabbed a little twig bundle of sagebrush. This usually is good. It is starting to rain, but alright, so for my wood, I want the densest wood I can find up close to the trunks of these trees. So the silky saw makes short work of it. So I want dead wood, but I want wood that's pretty dense, so it'll burn a decently long time. That's going to be good wood right there. And this big boy XL2000 has the curved blade, and that actually allows it to bite in without a lot of pressure. Alright, I got a wood supply in, got my fire going. Now I'm going to start yarding out a little bit of my camp gear. Set up a little kitchen area and a sitting area. And like always this time of year, there's a few drops of rain coming down, so I'm setting myself up under this juniper tree for two reasons. One, the juniper tree itself will give me a little bit of cover from the rain, so if it doesn't rain heavy, the tree will be enough. But if it starts raining heavier, I've got lots of points to tie off a tarp to make an overhead cover. And because it's raining, and it looks like it could rain all night, I'm going to go ahead and put up my awning. Well, it's just getting dark and it's just drizzling rain, which hopefully is going to blow over pretty soon. It's not quite enough to get me wet, but there's water on top of my table, water on top of my tent. So I'm just going to kick it for a couple minutes, rest, drink some water, and then I should have some coals and I'll start cooking some dinner. So I got this wax paper here, and I'm going to put it down on my table, just because those pie irons can get a little messy, and that'll give me something to set them on. Alright. Alright, I'm going to do a pretty basic dinner tonight, so I've just got a couple of ingredients. I've got some bread, some sliced prime rib, some cheese, and some hot salsa. And I'm just going to make me some hot spicy roast beef sandwiches. Alright, now that the pie irons are hot, I'm just going to drop a piece of bread in one of them. And on top of the bread, I'm going to put a piece of cheese. And I'm going to need another piece of cheese too. Really, the more cheese the better. Then we'll put just a little bit of salsa on top of that cheese. And this is, you get this out of the ethnic food aisle. This is the, oh, I always forget what it's called, Mbasa hot salsa. This is good stuff. Then we're going to put some of this delicious sliced prime rib that we get at the deli. And put a nice amount of meat on there. Nobody likes a sandwich that's light on the meat. And we'll put another piece of cheese on the top. Put our other piece of bread. Then we'll close her up. Now, we'll stick this on the fire for about 1 minute on each side. And while that one's cooking, we'll get the other one ready. So one thing I've learned about cooking with these pie irons is they retain heat so well that I can stick it on the fire for a minute or two. And then like this one has been on the fire. And then I just set it over here on the wood pile. And I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's been sitting here for a couple minutes and it's still cooking. You don't necessarily have to leave them down in the coals the whole time that you cook on them. I find that's especially helpful for things that take a little bit more time to cook through. Like these sandwiches are pretty thick. I've got a couple of slabs of cheese, a lot of meat in them, so they're going to need a little longer to cook. So I'll take them kind of on the heat and off the heat a couple of times. All right, let's see how this first one came out. I hope I didn't overcook it. Yep, I did. I got it just a little bit black around the edges. That's all right. It's still going to be delicious. Ah, look at that. Everything's melted and hot. My beverage of choice tonight is a mango passion fruit kombucha. I'm on a kombucha kick lately. That stuff's just so refreshing. All right, let's see how this sandwich is. You can't beat that. So simple to cook with these pie irons, and so far just about everything I've made out of them has been amazing. And that melted cheese, that sliced prime rib, then that kick from that hot salsa. Just a nice combination on a cool evening. All right, let's see how number 2 came out. Oh, look at that. That one's perfect. Boy, that rain is just not letting up. All right, let's see how number 2 is. Well, I'd say number 2 is every bit as delicious as number 1 was. Well, guys, not only is it raining, but now the wind's starting to blow a little bit, so it's getting chilly out here. So I think I'm going to let the fire die down and then head up into the rooftop tent. Well, today didn't end up being the most exciting day. I really enjoyed finding that new mine site, but there wasn't necessarily a lot of really incredible stuff there, but it was just cool finding the site and seeing the old retort and the old equipment and stuff. But I'm really excited about getting further out east into this country. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. All right, well, I stepped away from the fire and crawled up into my tent because the rain was just persistent enough that I was getting damper and damper out there, and now it's all stopped. But I'm actually thinking about just laying down and reading a little bit and then getting a good night's sleep, doing some exploring for tomorrow. I'm a little bit worried about my gas situation. I'm reasonably certain I have enough to get to a gas station, but the thing that I'm really disappointed about is I know I'm going to want to explore some other areas on the way out. So I'm going to have to do some looking at the map and calculating, see if maybe there's a closer gas station. I don't know, I might reroute down to Lakeview or something like that. I'll look at some mileage calcs and see what the closest town that might have gas. But the problem is I'm kind of really out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not very close to any town. I know you guys that have been following my channel for a while have heard this before, but I still always get questions about using the Mr. Buddy heater up in my rooftop tent. And so I follow a couple of rules with it. One is I only turn it on when I'm awake, so I never leave it on when I go to sleep. I basically just turn it on in the evening a little bit when I'm just relaxing in the tent, and then I turn it on again in the morning when I wake up and am getting out of my sleeping bag and getting started for the day. So I don't sleep with it on. I don't need to. I have plenty warm sleeping bags and everything like that. It's not really necessary to have a heater going at night. It's just mainly when I'm lounging in the evening and when I'm getting out of my sleeping bag in the morning. Then the other thing I do is I keep the tent really well vented when I'm running it. So I've got cross ventilation. I actually vent it in 3 places on 3 sides of the tent when I'm running the heater. So works good. I've never got a headache, never had an issue or anything like that. Obviously, I've never died. But I'm not recommending it. I'm just telling you guys what I do. And it is a lifesaver on evenings like tonight where I was pretty damp when I crawled up into my tent. So even though it's not that cold out here, I was pretty damp when I crawled up into the tent. So I wanted to get myself nice and dry, changed into dry clothes, had it nice and toasty in here so that I got the dampness off my skin so I wouldn't be clammy and stuff when I crawled into my sleeping bag. All right, guys, I was just getting ready to go to sleep, but I was so comfortable I felt compelled to do a little shout out to Wiggy's Sleeping Bags. And they don't sponsor me. They've never given me a product or anything like that. As far as I know, they don't even know that I exist. But these are the most comfortable sleeping bags I've ever owned. And they're the most true to their temperature rating. So I started using these probably 15, maybe even more than that years ago. And ever since I found Wiggy's bags, I've never gone back to another bag, man. They just perform insanely well. Like, they're just the most comfortable, most versatile sleeping bag that I've ever found. For overlanding and car camping, man, Wiggy's sleeping bags are just the way to go. Oh, good morning, guys. It's about a 6:20 or so in the morning, and a little chilly out here, no frost, but it rained off and on all night, so I'm going to get a fire going, get a little breakfast, and what I want to do this morning is actually get some breakfast in me, get camp broke, and get on the move fairly early. Get a little bit of gear on here. Time to get a fire going. All right, getting ready to cook some breakfast here. So first thing I'm going to do is get some bacon out, because no breakfast is complete without bacon, right? And for kitchen prep, using the Coyote Works survival knife, available from CK Knife and Tool. Chad's an awesome guy. It was really cool that he was able to work with me to kind of build my signature ultimate survival knife, which also happens to be a fantastic camp cooking, kind of all-around camp knife. And I always like to share a little bacon with my Coyote brothers. Alright, I pre-cooked up my bacon a little bit. Now I'm going to drop an egg in this pan, and I'm going to pre-cook the egg a little bit. See, this bacon will stay warm here in this little cast iron pan, and this egg will almost cook just sitting there in the pan, but I'll stick it over the fire for just a little bit. Now while that's all cooking, I'll prep my other pie iron for my sandwich to go in. Basically all I'm going to do here is put a little butter in them and just get them preheated a little bit. Alright, let's see how sandwich number one. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Nice and crispy. Perfect. Put a little butter back in those pans so they'll be ready for the next guy. Alright, in just a couple minutes, got a delicious breakfast sandwich. That's perfect. Crispy on the outside, hot on the inside. So I'm stalking what I now believe is a coyote, but when I first heard it, I thought it was a wolf. And he wasn't. He's getting closer to me. There's two of them. Right over there. One right over there. This one right over here is only about 75 yards away. The wind is blowing in my face, blowing into the camera, so they can't hear me and they can't smell me. Alright, so that was pretty cool. Well, I actually saw that one and I pointed in the camera where it was. When I go back, it'll be interesting to watch the footage and see if the footage picked it up. But so they were coyotes, but there are wolves out in this country now. And so I was hoping it was going to be a wolf, but that was pretty interesting. I got fairly close to him. Actually, I was only probably 75 yards away from that one, which is pretty rare that you can actually stalk a coyote. But the wind was perfect. The wind was blowing in my face, blowing just hard enough that it was masking any sound I was making, and then also carrying my smell, obviously, the opposite direction from the animal. So, nice little stalk. But before I get sidetracked anymore, I'm going to get back and tear down camp so we can have some more adventures. Pack up my ready light. There's not much sun today, so I didn't get much of a charge in this thing. So, hopefully on my next trip I'll get some sun. There's probably enough charge left in it to get me through one or two more trips. And these Rome pie irons are nice because they come with these little canvas sacks to put them in, so that keeps them from getting stuff in my duffel bag all black. Alright, I'm all packed up and ready to roll out of here. So that literally took me about between 15 and 20 minutes to tear down my entire camp. Alright, well, I'm on the trail and now it's starting to rain. I'm going this other direction to loop back out to a little more well-traveled of a road. With the extra fuel I threw in, it shows that I have 161 miles to empty, so that should give me, roughly 20 miles or so of exploring range besides the miles I need to get back home. I don't know, maybe we'll find something interesting. Alright, so I saw a map marker right in this area for an old well, and oftentimes by old wells there's old homesteads. So I'm going to walk around here a little bit and see if I can find anything. So far I'm not finding much, but right here there's some old pieces of wood. And it looks like there used to be some kind of a circle. Oh yeah. And right here's an old piece of metal. Looks like it used to be an old drum. Now this is interesting. An old piece of cable here. Just laying out on the middle of this scab flat. Alright, so I'm making this little loop here, looking for evidence of a homestead. And what I found instead is I started finding some Native American artifacts. Found a few old cans from the homestead era, but no evidence of a foundation or anything. But nice base, some kind of an obsidian spear or knife or something. Whoops, dropped that. That's okay. I'll leave it there for future generations to enjoy. And then this is a really nice, pretty complete obsidian blade. My theory is that this little draw here that leads down into where the natural water source is down there was probably a place where game passed back and forth to the water source. And so this was an area where the Native Americans would have set up blinds and hunted here. So it just goes to show you my theory that wherever was a good place for the homesteaders or the settlers to come was often a good place for the Native Americans long before that. And usually because everyone out in this country gravitated towards those isolated areas where the few resources were. So there's usually a lot of history. Any place where there's some kind of a natural water source or cover or a stand of old growth juniper trees, usually those were areas that animals and humans throughout history gravitated towards. All right, guys, I'm taking a little bit of a gamble here. I'm taking what I think will be 30-mile cutoff through here. It roughly follows the route of an old historic, what originally was a wagon route. But if this gamble pays off, this will cut a pretty significant chunk of miles off of my trip. And since I'm running kind of lean on fuel, that's really important to me. So here's where the risk comes in is if the road's not decent and I can't make good time on it, number one, or if I get partway through it and there's a place that's not passable, then this could prove to be a huge mistake. And I don't really have enough extra fuel to be making any mistakes. So I'm taking off on this cutoff on a whim and a prayer, and I'm just hoping that I make it through. But if it doesn't turn out right, then I'm probably gonna have to call for a rescue. So hopefully my buddy Jackalope is on standby right now, because he's about the only guy that I know that can probably come out here and find me. Wow, guys, so this is exactly why I take these old shortcuts. This is one of the neatest looking homesteads that I've stumbled across in a while, and for the most part it's still intact. It's starting to fall down, but man, what a cool find. The bad thing is I'm getting tight for time, so I'm not going to be able to spend a lot of time exploring around here. But this is a gem, and this is one of the last ones that are still standing. There's only a handful of these left that are still upright like this, so I got to get back and explore this area around here before this one collapses. And what a perfect setting out here. There's a spring right there that they've improved. They did a little bit of trenching along, so they've got water. Right here where I'm standing was in the front yard of this homestead, and it's looking out over this big valley out here. This natural spring was seeping through here and would have provided some natural irrigation for these fields out in front of them. This is an awesome find, man. This right here made all the risk and everything of this shortcut worth it. So one of the things that's a little sketchy about this route today is I've got these mountains up on my left, and I can look right up there and see snow. Every time I come across a little gully or a low spot, the runoff water is coming down off the mountains across it. And you never know, these little gullies where the runoff is, you can never really tell if they have soft bottoms, if they're silty, if they're rocky, so it's a little bit sketchy every time I come to one. So I'm about halfway through now, and so far so good. I've hit a couple kind of sketchy spots, but nothing that I was really fearful that I was going to get stuck in or anything. So I'm hopeful that this is going to work out all right, and I'm going to make it out of here. All right, so for once in my life, a shortcut actually worked out. This was a long way through here in the sense that the road was really rough and my time was really slow. However, I did shave a bunch of miles off my trip, and I think just enough miles. My tank right now says 110 miles to empty, and I should be about 90 miles from the town where I live, so I saw just some amazing country coming through this way. And more than anything, I'm really stoked about finding this cutoff through here, so I know next time I head down into that country where I was at today, I can take this cutoff, get down there much more efficiently, and save on a bunch of fuel. Wow, this is crazy. I just saw something way off out here in the distance. A fire burned through here last year, so it cleared away all of the brush and everything, and I could see something way out here in this field, and it turns out that it's this old car, and it's sort of a boneyard or a dump, or maybe there was a homestead right here by. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but it's the most random thing. But a lot of cool stuff here, old cool bottles, and I don't think anybody's seen this in a long time. It's pretty amazing. Buckets with no bullet holes in them. All kinds of cool stuff. That last stop was just kind of a cool little bonus stop, and then it was time to finish off the last few miles before I hit pavement and headed back to civilization. As always, I appreciate you guys coming along with me, and until the next adventure, Coyote Works, out.